It's always got that thing running. It's crazy. We had no clue where we're going to go today, so we just got in the car, started driving, and found this red bridge. So here we are in the middle of the winter time. Hard to find a subject, but we got this really neat old what do you call these bridges?
This is a covered
It's
bridge.
a covered bridge. Wow. I don't know if it's my age or just being really tired. But yeah, we got this neat covered bridge to show you today. I think we're going to have fun. It's what we want to bring in this lesson is we want to talk about your image quality that you want to set your camera on, so you know if you're getting a small JPEG or a large JPEG or shooting camera raw. And we also want to discuss today your histogram, which helps you get the correct exposure. That's really, really critical. So here we are. Look at this neat thing. I don't think this is the lens I want, but I'd like to throw as much out of focus as possible. And I don't think I can get the bridge in with its lens. Of course not. Doggone it. Okay, well, so I will have to go to a different lens. You know, we just got here, so we really haven't had a chance to look the bridge over. What I like about this angle is the way that this tree kind of cuts back into the bridge, bringing your attention back into the bridge. So we'll get a wider angle lens here so I can get the tree and the bridge and the whole 9 yards, and we'll be ready to go. Now, I wonder if I remembered to turn my camera off. Actually, the truth of the matter is I forgot I hadn't even turned it on. But when you're changing lenses, you do want to turn your camera off, because there's a electromagnetic field in there that actually will suck dust particles into your lens or into your camera when you're taking the lens off. So be sure and turn your camera off before you change lenses. All right, I'm going to get a brush and brush my lens off. Now, you know, it's so much fun and it feels so good to touch your brush. They're wonderful, you know, and as soon as you do that and you put the oil from your fingers on your brush, you're not going to want to touch your lens with it. So don't go playing with the bristles on your brush. Use it for what it's supposed to be used for. Ah, good deal. That took everything off. Don't have to touch it with a rag, because once you touch it with a rag, you're taking a chance of just scratching it a little bit more. Well, let's see, we're supposed to be discussing the quality of your image. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to punch my menu button here. The very first thing that's available on your menu is going to be the quality. That's just how important this is. One of the first things that you would be making a selection. And you'll see my quality says I'm on camera raw. If I push my button here, I have the choice. I can have camera raw and I can also have a JPEG. And this JPEG down here with the large white curve to it, that's the largest JPEG you can have. And then each step down is a little bit smaller quality JPEG. There's a little red square that shows up that I'm shooting in camera raw, and there's a little red square down here that shows that I'm not shooting in a JPEG at all. I'm just shooting in RAW. If you're a press photographer or someone who has to get work out quickly, but you do want to have a high resolution image as well, you can shoot in camera raw, and you can also shoot in JPEG, and then that JPEG will be ready to send out instantly if you don't desire to do any processing on it yourself. So anyway, I'm set on camera raw like always, and that's where I'm going to shoot. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set my ISO to 100. I noticed a little earlier it was at 200, but I'm going to set it down to 100. So if you'll get off my darn shoulder. I want as much to be out of focus as possible. That's kind of hard to do when you're using a 70mm lens. So I'll use a fast shutter speed, which is going to make me open up my aperture to a big physical hole, which, as we know by now, is a very small number. And that's going to hopefully put far less in focus. So let's see, I'm going to a very large shutter speed and hopefully get a very small aperture on here. And let me point towards some green grass so I can get a good reading. That's interesting. That's 2.8, and I bet you 2.8 and everything still looks like it's in focus. And this camera only goes down to 2.8, so I can't throw it out of focus any more than that. It'll be a little sharper if I have my cable release. Again, if you're making things 6 or 8 feet wide, it has to be really stable. So I'm shooting at 1,000th of a second at 2.8 because I want that really wide open aperture to get as little depth of field as possible. Trying not to see things that are back behind the barn. And again, with a 70mm lens, you have a lot of depth of field, so just doing what we can. But I'm also going to shoot this in HDR. So I'm going to take 3 different images. My first image will be a normal exposure, and then I'll be 2 stops overexposed, and I'll be 2 stops underexposed. I'll put them all together for the best detail in the shadows, midtones, and highlights, and you'll get a great picture that way. When we bring up the image on a Canon, then you hit the information button and you get a choice of the different images that you might see. This shows you your red, green, and blue histogram. This just shows you a black and white histogram. Now on a cloudy day like today, you don't notice a whole lot of difference. The blue does come over farther because the clouds are blue. The cloudy day is bluer, but there's times where you will notice more drastic difference between your 3, or you can just have it as a black and white if you want. But as I push this, now see, this first image just shows the entire picture. So the next image shows that I'm in camera raw, and we're looking at number 38. Then this jumps into the histogram I prefer, and then this jumps into the histogram that has both black and white and color. And then it goes right back to the image again. So I like to keep mine set on this particular setting. It also gives me the other information. It tells me that I'm in raw, white color balance. I'm got a center focus here, and I'm looking at image 38 of 30, the last image, number 38. There's 38 images, so I'm looking at 38. It gives me the date and that I'm shooting in Adobe RGB, the time of day. Gives me my ISO. It even tells me I'm shooting at a 320th second at f2.8. So it gives me all the information I need. So what I'm doing here is to try to get the right exposure. Radiant light is different than pigments. If you take all the radiant light equally, mix all those colors together, you end up with 18% gray. So your meter is going to give you the correct exposure when you have the entire spectrum of light all mixed together. Well, quite often you don't have that when you're out here shooting. So if you want to buy an 18% gray card, you can hold that out in front of your camera, take a reading on the gray card, and you will have the correct exposure. The problem with that is that you want to be sure that the amount of light falling on your gray card is the same amount of light that's falling on your subject. So, you know, it's possible that you could have a shadow on your card because of the angle of the sun or something, and maybe your subject's in the sunlight. So you've got to really pay attention to how the light's falling on your gray card. Green grass will give you the same exposure as a gray card, 18% gray card. So I have already metered on the grass, and then I've moved my camera into position where I'm going to shoot the bridge itself. Okay, so in order to set your exposure correctly with the meter, again, I'm aiming the camera right down at the green grass. You'll see the little point come up there. You want to center it right in the dead center, and it says at a f4 up here at 250th of a second, we're going to get a great exposure. So that's what we're going to use when we photograph the covered bridge. And again, I'm going to do an HDR shot. I'll do 3 shots here. 1 is the normal exposure, 2 stops overexposed, 2 stops underexposed. I'll put them all together. Only because this is kind of a gray day, and I think it'll give a little more color. The other thing I'm doing that I did not explain is I like to automatically focus it. You can't focus very sharp if you've got glasses on. You can if you have contacts on. That works great. But particularly at my age, I don't focus very well manually. So I let the camera do it. So I will focus 1/3 into my depth of field, and then I turn the focus off and move the camera around to what is actually going to compose my picture. Because that area that is in the center, I use a center focusing point, and that area might not be exactly where I want to focus. Right now I'm just setting it for HDR so I can get 3 different shots like I explained earlier. And that just came out super. Great. I am going to take one more. My sky was a little blown out. If I should decide to just try to use one shot here, I need a little less light on the sky. I guess we could incorporate a graduated neutral density card here. That would be really smart. You can see the sky blinking. The blinking shows me that my sky is overexposed. There's not going to be detail in that area. My histogram shows the sky is overexposed on the top and underexposed on the bottom. So the contrast here is too extreme. The highlights are too extreme, the shadows are too extreme to make this come out perfectly. And that was, again, the reason why we were shooting this in HDR. Might be getting ahead of ourselves for beginning photographers, but let me get the graduated neutral density card out, or filter out, and show you that. We're getting into a lot more professional setup here when you start getting a graduated neutral density card. If you look at this through the sky, you might be able to, you can see how it's much darker on the top than it is on the bottom. In fact, there's none on the bottom, so it's a graduated neutral density. And obviously, the sky is always much brighter than the land is. And quite often, the range of light for the camera is too extreme to be able to handle both. So you can get a graduated neutral density card. And you can see it's really big because you're going to manually control how dark you get the sky. And you also want to pay attention that you can't actually see a line on your image where the neutral density card is changing from being dark to light. But you put it right in front of your lens, and you must place it right smoothly against the lens. If it tilts out one way or another, you'll get a reflection off of it. It'll reflect on your picture. So you hold it up there, and you visually look to see where you think it works the best to calm the sun down, the sky down, that is. And then you look at your histogram and see if it's working, and it worked very nicely.
So what does the red, green, and the blue bell curves, what does that mean?
Oh, you can see it from here? No,
yeah.
All right. Well, that's my histogram. It's showing my red, green, and blue light. If your histogram extends off on the left side, which you can see there with that little sharp point, it's telling me that my shadows are too dark and there's not going to be detail in the shadow area. Now, that's such a mild amount there that I can correct that in Camera Raw. And then if it should go off on the top side, well, the right side, really, if this was turned horizontally, it'd be, I was overexposed, and there would be no detail in the highlight areas. So that was happening with my sky on the shot before I used my graduated neutral density card. The right side, the highlight side, was going off. It was too bright. So we corrected that problem. One reason why we're going off on the dark side here, it's too dark, is look, we're looking inside of this covered bridge, and it's dark in there. And honestly, if you can see some of the structure in the beginning and then it goes dark towards the back, I don't think that really matters. So you kind of have to consider, what you're shooting. I love to use the example, if you're in your home at night and you're shooting inside and you're showing your living room, let's say, and there's a door that leads into another room and there's no light over there, well, that doorway that is in your picture is obviously getting no light whatsoever, so your histogram is going to tell you that. And if you're happy with having a black doorway, which looks rather normal at that time of, at night, then it's fine. So if you know why your histogram has gone off, it's all right. I mean, if you shoot a spectral highlight, if you shoot the reflection of light off the chrome of a bumper of a car, and you have a spectral highlight, well, you're going to have a little tiny bit of area, not much, but you're going to have a little tiny bit of area that's going to be going off in your highlight section, of course. Again, it's not going to be a very large area. If it gets to be a large area, you've got an overexposed problem. But yes, a diamond ring that's sparkling, that little sparkle will show that it's gone off your histogram as well. So, take into consideration what you're shooting. Just don't let it go off very far. If you let it go off very far, you're going to miss your shot. What's really amazing about photography? It's like going fishing. You got to get yourself up out of bed, get up early, and go out and go fishing and see how many fish you catch. We went out today, and we didn't have a clue what we were going to do. It's early spring, so things are still kind of nasty out here. And yet, we really had a great day today. Great subjects. We just ran upon and found them and made do. So get out there and go fishing. You'll be surprised what you come up with. Hey, thanks for joining us. We'll see you on the next round. Bye-bye.
We want you to subscribe and share if you enjoy this kind of content. Hal and I plan on doing more videos, so we greatly appreciate your views. God bless.